Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Property Management 101, and for today's video, we're going to be discussing Notices to Move Out Part 2. This is the second video on this topic, and the reason why is because how you handle your notices is a very important operational aspect to that team. How your team handles notices will make a big impact to how well they can perform. If you've not already watched part 1 to this topic, I will post it in the video description at the end of this video, and I'll provide a link in the top right hand corner of the page now. Here are 3 additional practices that you should have with your teams when a resident gives you notice. Number 4, can you change that resident's mind? Is there anything that you can do to save that resident and have that resident elect to renew rather than give notice? This is going to be really important that you actually address this question early on, shortly after they give notice. The further down the line you get from them giving notice, the more likely they're going to make some sort of concrete plans for their future. So whether it be signing in a new complex or scheduling movers, things like that. So the easier you make it for them, the more likely they're willing to consider staying at your property. When you're following up with residents to see if there's any chance that you could save them and have them renew, one example in my past really comes to mind, and this was an example of a resident was very unhappy with the maintenance services we gave to that particular resident in that unit. And so after collecting some information from that resident, I sat down with one of my maintenance staff and said, hey, look, this resident has had a bad experience. They're not willing to renew at this time, but I think if we at least provide them good service, at the very least, they're going to have a better word of mouth if they end up leaving and moving out. So the maintenance team was great about this. They worked with me. They followed up with me after things were done. They went to his unit multiple times, and that resident ended up renewing. So when a resident gives you the opportunity to express their frustrations or maybe the reasons why they're not renewing, that's an opportunity for you to potentially save them. Another common thing is maybe it's a situation the resident's giving notice because their renewal offer they received is out of their price point. Maybe they were not willing or able to go up to a certain amount. You may be able to find that amount if you ask them, what can we do to keep you to stay here? Maybe it's an amount that you're willing to live with, where it's not that big of a difference. You're going to save on the vacancy and advertising and turning that unit cost. So it may be something you're willing to live with a slightly less aggressive offer. One word of caution when it comes to this though, it has to be something you're willing to offer other residents in that particular renewal batch as well, because you don't want to violate fair housing laws. Welcome back to Property Management 101. For those of you that are new here, please allow me to introduce you to our community. This channel is dedicated to discussing best practices, offering valuable tips, and sharing tricks that are tailored specifically to the property management industry. You may have noticed there is an abundance of podcasts, channels, and websites out there providing information that's related to the property management industry. However, much of this content is focused on catering to investors and to property owners, really maximizing their investments. Here is where we stand out. Our channel is created with you, the individuals in the trenches, in mind. We are here to support those that are actively involved in managing properties, ensuring that not only your efforts are worthwhile, but also highly effective. So whether you're a seasoned professional or you're new to the property management industry, you've come to the right place. Join us as we dive into proven practices for the property management industry, and we'll be discussing many different types of demographic and asset types in the property management industry. Thank you for being a part of our community, and we look forward to engaging with you on this exciting journey in the property management space. And the 5th best practice that you should keep in mind when a resident gives notice to move out of your property is you want to make sure you update the make ready date as quickly as possible. Hopefully shortly after the resident moves out, you've walked the unit for damages, and hopefully you're able to update that date because it's not the date necessarily that's the default date that you put in your PMS system. Your default date is something I often see that is not going to be the norm. Every unit's going to be slightly maybe worse off or maybe better off where you're able to turn it quicker or later than your default date that you put in your system. One thing that I often see as a common mistake is maintenance teams and office teams, even if they're able to get the unit done early, let's say 3 days when your default time frame is 5 days, they'll take their foot off the gas and allow the maintenance team to maybe go do some other things and allow that unit to get turned later on. This is a mistake. You really want to make sure you turn that unit as quickly as possible so you can get back on the market as quickly as possible to be moved into. So this is something I would highly recommend doing. Seeing if you can achieve a day sooner or 2 days sooner will really make the difference in your overall vacancy loss for the year. And as time goes on, as the unit is getting turned and things are getting done in the unit, I would highly recommend consistently checking back at that make ready date to make sure it's not a situation where it needs to be updated again. I've often seen the mistake where teams will not update it and they'll have someone apply for the unit, scheduled to move in, let's say in 2 days, but the unit's not going to be ready for another 4 days. You either have to move them to another unit or have them wait a couple days. Now, this resident has a bad first taste in their mouth, so this is why it's really important you constantly are checking those make ready dates to see if they need to be updated. If you're enjoying this video and you're learning something new, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future videos. And the last best practice to keep in mind when it comes to those notices is that you want to update your staff. So as you've confirmed a make ready date throughout the process, you always want to make sure this is updated to your staff. If something comes up or it's going to take longer, make sure you let your staff know, make sure that make ready date is updated. If the unit's close to being ready, then it's also a situation to let the staff know so they can start scheduling tours, they can start scheduling some time to walk the unit for final walks, and this will allow the entire team to be on the same page and set a really good expectation. And for a video recap today, keep in mind these 3 things when it comes to those notices. Number 1, see if you have any opportunity to change the resident's mind. This may be something that you're able to provide to them. Maybe they're looking for a slightly lower rate, or it's a situation they haven't had good experience with a work order, or maybe something else. But you want to make sure you ask this question very early on after they give notice. The second thing we talked on today's video about is updating the make ready date. This is going to be really important so you don't have situations where applicants are applying for a unit to move into a particular date that's not going to be ready for that unit, or if it's a situation, if it's ready earlier, you're able to make sure you get that on the market and showing available sooner rather than later. And the last thing we discussed is making sure you're updating your team. So this is going to be really important so you can start to schedule tours, you can start to schedule final walks, and everyone will be on the same page when it comes to those make ready dates and getting a move in as quickly as possible into that unit. If you enjoyed this video and you learned something new, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future videos. Before putting any of these practices into place, please watch our updated disclosure video as well as our updated why we do this video, which is the channel's why. And I'll be providing a link to both of those in the video description. And to stay on top of industry news, polls, and video releases, please feel free to connect with our LinkedIn and our Instagram page. If you have any questions about this video or any of our videos, feel free to leave a comment. I'll be happy to address it for you. Happy leasing!